Cool little skyline. Figured I'd open this video up with that. So today, I'm just going to talk about this subject on the subject of skylines. And speaking of cool skylines, we got a couple of really cool skylines that are hitting the road now, and I think you know who they are. But the real question is, which one's going to be faster? Which one's going to be better? I mean, that's a pretty relative question, and there's a lot of formulation that goes into that answer. So let's talk about the two different cars and what I think is going to happen if they race, and in different scenarios of racing. So we'll start with Tommy's car. So Tommy's car is a very different build than Rudnick's car. If you look at the two cars, they have a lot of similarities. They're both RB26. They're both stock mount twin turbo setup. But Tommy's car is different for one main reason, and that is the transmission. The transmission is a 6-speed instead of the 5-speed, which came in it. And that 6-speed transmission is from the R34. The gear ratios are different, and that makes quite a bit of a change as to the power delivery as the car gets into boost. So basically, with a 6-speed transmission, you're going to spend more time in a narrower power band because you have more gears to do it. And as long as you shift extremely quick and you're able to get into that next gear quickly, you will have a mechanical advantage as far as gearing goes. The turbos that he has on his car, the GTSSs, the RHKS turbos, they spool really quick. They're a ball bearing, and they really do have a responsive nature. And that's evident in the videos. You can see how his car gets onto boost and stays in that power band because of that transmission. So realistically, the acceleration advantage is in the 6-speed transmission. Now, there's a couple of details that kind of change the way you look at that, and one of those is, okay, so you do spend more time in a narrower power band, but you do have to shift more often. So there's the chance of missing a shift or a little bit of time that's spent in actually shifting the car. It's not like a sequential training where you're just staying on power all the time and just ripping through the gears. You actually do have to shift that transmission, that 6-speed. So that's a big difference. The overall gearing is going to be a much shorter, snappier, pow, pow, pow ordeal. At first gear especially is going to be very low and very, very quick. So that's an advantage on the track for sure if he goes onto a road course where most cars would spend time in second gear, he's going to be in third. And that makes a big difference because he's going to be in between that second and third gear of a 5-speed car all the time, staying in third. So a little bit of a difference there. Depends on the track, obviously. On a big track, not much of a difference, but on a small, tight, technical track, that's going to make a difference. Brakes. It's got some awesome brakes on the car, clearly. That's a huge advantage on the track. Not in a drag race, obviously. But that's a big advantage around a track. Any 2-minute lap or more track is going to require some serious braking, even for one hot lap. So, advantage again to that car. Suspension wise, I won't put too much emphasis on the suspension so much, just because I know that there's a lot more to it than just suspension tuning on that car. Tires, brakes, that kind of stuff, much more important, honestly, than the suspension. So, tires, clearly, more meat, more traction, another advantage on the track. So, Tommy's car, definitely a very punchy and responsive setup. And that's a completely, I want to say not completely different, but that's a departure from where Rudnick's car is. So, the motor, generally speaking, stock, not worried about, making too much power. Clearly, stock motor can handle that 500 to 600 horsepower level. Everything else is pretty straightforward. It's a very responsive setup. Rudnick's car, on the other hand, let's go now. We're going to flip to his car. Rudnick's car is what I would consider a little bit above that response setup. He went for more of a power build. Not quite the big power build, but he went for more of a power build than Tommy did. And originally, the original plan was to have the HKS GT 2530s. So the 2530s are a step above the GTSS, and they are a little bit bigger, so they spool a little bit slower, but they have a higher power threshold, so they can handle over 600 wheel horsepower, which we were in line to make. Now, as you guys know, the turbos, the 2530s that were on the car, didn't make it, unfortunately. So he opted to throw in a set of 2860s that were available at the time, and I'm not convinced that the 2860 is good enough to replace the 2530. So that's a little bit of a fragile ground to stand on. But regardless, he put those on the car. We did some data logging back to back. Their setup is not as responsive, honestly. Now, mind you, I've seen data from both cars, so I understand what both cars' strong points are. Rudnick's car is not as responsive, especially with those 2860s on it now. It is a little bit of a lag monster. It's still making good power, but boost-wise, we're tapped out at 25 pounds. Tommy's car was making 22 pounds, I think he said. So realistically, there should be a fair comparison there. But at 25 pounds with the 2830s or 2860s versus 30 pounds with the 2530s, we do see a power loss there. The 2530s were, again, in that 600 horsepower range, while the 2860s are not going to get there. So, if you look at the trade-off that we've made power-wise, and we haven't gained in the response, honestly, it puts Rudnick's car at a disadvantage. The 5-speed in a drag race might be an advantage if he can get it into gear as quick as possible. And the only reason I say that is because he can utilize less shifting. There's one less shift as an advantage over the 6-speed. Because Rudnick's car is going to start in second, where Tommy's car will be starting in third at the same speed. That's a big advantage for the 5-speed because now you're not going to be grabbing that next gear super quick. Second gear, third gear, there's going to be one extra shift for Tommy. And if we're doing a second gear, or let's call it a 40 mile an hour roll, a 40 to 130, 140, 40 to 140, Tommy's going to have to throw an extra gear. He might have to throw sixth. We'll see. But regardless, Rudnick's car will end up at the top of fourth. That's rated at 140 miles an hour for his car at Redline. So, that being said, I would say at this point, if I were to make an educated and calculated guess as to which car would win in the drag race, which is what I think most people want to see right now with those cars, Rudnick's car is at a disadvantage. If they launch the cars, there's a possibility Rudnick can win. And the only reason I say that is because first gear is a lot longer in the 5-speed, so that's one more shift that won't have to be made even out of the hole. So Rudnick might get away with getting through the whole thing in 4 years, while Tommy might have to go through all 6. So those extra 2 shifts might cost him in the end. But from a roll, I think that the responsiveness of Tommy's car is going to have an advantage. He's going to get out a half a car to a car right off the hit, and that will be very difficult to reel back in. It's always easier to get out on someone than it is to reel them in. Reeling someone in takes twice as much power as getting out on them. So that's my honest opinion. That's what I think is going to happen. I'd love to do a comparison between either one of those with Dusty too, because Dusty is like in my opinion, kind of the best of both worlds. It has rebuilt 2530s on it, and it's extremely light. So Dusty weighs 2,800 pounds. And don't tell anyone. So at 2,800 pounds, there's a 300-pound weight advantage. That doesn't seem like much in a big car, but in these cars that start with 3,100 pounds, that's quite the advantage. So there's so many ways to slice it and cut it up, but truthfully, Dusty is a unique car because of the weight and the power combo, and it's extremely responsive even with the 2530s. So just a fair comparison, again, unbiased between the two of them, between Rudnik and Tommy. I think both cars are strong in their own ways, but Rudnik's car is not what I would consider a final product, and the real reason why is because those 2530s are not on the car. So if he can get a set of 2530s rebuilt like Dusty's, put those in the car, game changer. I guarantee it. That's my opinion. Hope you guys enjoy it.